Okay, Bluebirds, Niitaniko Cutjaw, and welcome back to my channel. So in my previous video, I expressed what should be believed as a fair explanation between racism and white supremacy. I basically said how Caucasian racism was Caucasians feeling socially superior and white supremacy was Caucasians actually being socially superior, meaning they collectively maintain a particularly advantageous position in society. In this video, I'll be explaining true life examples of how white culture became the dominant culture despite North America being native land. But before I discuss this further, if you're interested in learning the truth about Native history and culture, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also check out all my other social media, including Twitter and Instagram. And if you get the chance, check out my personal blog site, link in the description. So, after having watched my previous video in its entirety, one would fully understand how I believe the literal, real-world definitions of racism and white supremacy vary from the written definitions around today, which are regularly being changed. They have the description of white supremacy being something exclusive to Caucasians, and which is just a more extreme form of racism, but that's not right at all, really. The root word of white supremacy is supreme and is an accurate description of the main culture, which is Caucasian culture. Grocery stores, capitalism, and school buildings are all manifestations of European imperialism. And if you notice, I use the word imperialism rather than colonialism because it's a far more accurate image of how Europeans have adversely affected North America. Modern day America and Canada, both which are still Native American property, are currently under nearly absolute Caucasian rule. The extent of social and political power that the dominant society has over native land goes beyond the mere act of simply settling in a few territories, but rather practically obliterating an entire ethnic group and the culture and identity of said ethnic group. That qualifies as imperialism. So how did European imperialism actually come about? Well, the first thing that happened was having Europeans come to this land. And I didn't say discover because you simply can't discover a country that already has millions of people already living in it. Now, when Europeans first arrived in North America, their primary goal was acclimating to the terrain and unfamiliar surroundings, which varied significantly from, say, Britain or Spain. Once they became comfortable enough with the land to navigate decently, genocide and rape and disregarded legal agreements with the natives proceeded. In the midst of all this destruction, Europeans gradually introduced aspects of their own cultures. This is why I say it's complete garbage whenever people say white people have no culture, because we're all collectively living their culture every day. With the concept of white supremacy explained earlier in the video, slowly but surely, North American culture morphed from native culture to doctored European culture. Our learning style, tribal historians, and oral traditions were replaced by schools. Now, of course, the initial concept of school started with Africans, the first noted university on earth actually being Timbuktu. But as I've said before, the dominant society is attempting to rewrite history. So if you look up Timbuktu now, the only information that comes up about it is that it was an ancient city in Africa. But I digress. So the Africans created some of the first schools in the world, and Europeans copied the idea in their own country and put their own twist on it. When Europeans bought schools on native land, they were used primarily to indoctrinate Native American children and young adults, i.e., force them to learn English and lose knowledge of their native tongues, sever them from their cultural style of dress by imposing European-style clothing, and so on and so forth. The school system in North America, long before the Ivy League, was meant to intentionally cause natives to lose touch with their culture. In fact, thanks to white supremacy and centuries of relocation caused by warfare and the U.S. government once it came into existence, Native American culture is largely institutionalized. Considering myself, I'm not even partially fluent in my tribal tongue and I only know a few words. Many natives have to enroll in community colleges that were created and are being controlled by Caucasians in order to learn their tribal dialects. And even then, because Caucasians fundamentally have their hands in the overall school system, who's to say that they're actually learning their real dialects and not, say, some made-up satanic language? Prior to the modern-day school system, natives learned directly from masters of specific subjects, which was far more practical. Now, look at the money system in place today. The thing about the money system is that, and what many people actually don't know, is that the entire Western Hemisphere operated chiefly from a bartering system that is practically obsolete today due to the overbearing presence of Eurocapitalism. One of the first ever blogs I posted on my blog site, link in the description, is discussing the indigenous bartering system and why it was, and still would be to this day, superior to the money system we have in place now. Homelessness, hunger, and extreme economic disparity do not exist in bartering systems, but they do exist in capitalist systems. And what do we have in society today, in part due to capitalism? Homelessness, hunger, and extreme economic disparity, among many other problems. In other words, any aspect of day-to-day life in originally indigenous lands, such as North America and Australia, because people tend to forget about them too, that isn't from the natives of that land, is imposed Caucasian culture. And what is the existence of Caucasian culture in native countries? White supremacy. I'll take it a step further and we'll give another example of white supremacy that could be a bit more relatable to everyone. I've been invested in the social affairs of Native Americans for years now and would be comfortable as identifying myself, at least, as a Native American social commenter. However, my online presence and corresponding following is noticeably small at the moment, and that's because I just recently launched all the social media relating to the Bone Thread. This is because I've always hated social media. I hate technology, but due to the pertinent aspects of white supremacy, I understood and ultimately had to accept that the only way for me to reach other Native people would be to utilize social media and the technology necessary to access it. And especially when you factor in the existence of the virus going around, I have no choice whatsoever but to reach Native people through the online world. This dilemma is also the result of white supremacy. Literally every aspect of life today stems from white supremacy. Even the way we dress, the food we eat, our modes of transportation. White supremacy plays an overwhelming role in our society today. And for those of you who want to say I'm just exaggerating, if you live in the United States or Canada or Australia, identify one aspect of daily life that has not been impacted by Anglo culture in absolutely any way. All right. But tell me your thoughts on this below, and with that being said, have a happy, I'm Cut Jaw, this is the Bone Thread, and I'll see you all in the next video.